Hi, it's Glenda. Welcome back. This is now part 2 of my 3-part tutorial on how to use the Cricut markers utilizing Glenda's marker method. So I appreciate you coming back. Stay tuned for part 2. If you happen to get onto this video before you see part 1, go on back and start at the beginning. You'll be glad you did. Here we go. So let me zoom out a little bit here and tell you what we're going to do next. The next part of this whole thing to make this work the way that is best for your markers is you need to control the cut function within the software. So if you're following the directions right now, I really don't want you to do that because you're going to start to get really confused. For this exercise, we are going to only touch the machine itself to load paper, and we're going to do it at the very end to unload paper, and then in the midst of this we're going to have to swap out our marker for our blade, and we're going to have to change the pressure. But that is part of what makes this work. So right now what I want you to see is that I have the blade, the cutting blade, in my machine, which is what I want. And again, if you're following directions, you're probably really confused because that's not what they say. They say you're supposed to cut with your markers first. When you use your markers first, what happens is a lot of times the paper can absorb that little bit of dampness, and then it becomes a matter that your paper's a little soggy. So when you try to go back and cut after, I was getting a lot of drag marks and a lot of raggedy edges. What I found out is if I cut first and then come back in and do the markers, my success rate was way, way higher. Now there's one more thing I wanted to show you, just because you're probably looking at some of my stuff here and thinking, what a mess has she got going up here? And I am not the only person in the world that does this. I'm sure that most of us have seen on the pink stamper, my good friend Robin. She's been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a very long time. And I just want to show you what this is. And I'm not going to use this as an example because this overlay is not a good example because it is from a solutions cartridge and it doesn't have a full-on handbook like the majority of the cartridges do. So for this, I'm going to swap over here for just a second again, and I'm going to zip on and try and zoom in as much as I can. And I'm going to pull up the Cars cartridge from Disney, okay? And I'm going to go down here to the images. I have to go back to all by category because I still had the keywords up. Okay, that's a good thing to remember if you're looking for something. Make sure you're in the right category. All right, so here's the Cars cartridge, and I'm going to double click on it to bring it up on the overlay. Okay, now let's say I'm looking at this, and I know there is an old-fashioned cool, like VW Peace Out hippie bus on here somewhere. By George, I cannot remember for the life of me where it's at, and I think that might be it, but there's some other things that look like it could be. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at the combination of my handbook and my overlay for this. And I kind of take this to the farthest extreme. Most people aren't doing it to this extreme, but I'm in my book, okay? And in my book, I see that this VW image that I want, the bus, is actually residing on page 65 of the handbook. But as you notice, I have 38 written over here in the corner. And that's because I know this is on button 38 of the overlay. So let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to throw this up here for a second. And here we go. Okay. So what I mean by that is every cartridge overlay has a series of rows, and within those rows there are buttons, okay? What I want you to pay attention to, and I'm sorry this is a little jiggly, is I don't want you to care right now about the gray ones over here or the gray ones over here. I want you to only concentrate on the white buttons. And what you'll see is that there is a row of 5. There's 5 rows, 50 images, and within those there are 10 buttons in each row. So, do you remember what the number was that was on my VW bus that I had written down? It was 38. How do I find that? I have written up here to the extreme, as I told you. I have these all numbered 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21, 30, 31, 40, 41, 50. I know it was button 38. So what I do is I get into this row, 31 to 40. I go over here, and I know it was the 8th button, so I just intersect these two in the 31 to 40 and in the 8, and there's my VW bus. Okay, that was just a little quick aside. Like I said, I know I'm certainly not the only person that has ever done this, and there are several wise people out there on the message board that have also been doing this for a long time. It's just funny that I think none of us ever knew that we were all doing it forever. Okay, so now we're going to load the paper. All right. The next part of this, that is the most important part, is that's one of 2 times I want you from now on to touch this overlay. You can touch it to load the paper first, and then when we're all finished, you can touch the unload paper. But in between, no matter what those directions tell you, if you're following my method, don't do it. Don't touch it ever again until we're done. So now we're back here, and what we're going to do is we are going to cut with Cricut. This is the most important thing right now. I want you to only cut using this little pair of scissors over here that says cut with Cricut. I don't want you to touch the cut button on your physical machine at all. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit cut with Cricut. And I'm going to pause because I don't want to make you sit here and go through the whole thing. All right? So I'll pause and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and it has stopped cutting. But before I go on, I want to just show you really quickly in case you haven't seen them before. These are the Cricut markers. Actually, they're called Cricut Color. And this is my well-loved basic collection, which are just black and brown. Then there are, of course, the primary colors. Then there are some really pretty collections, one called the Fashion Collection, and then the Sophisticated Collection. Aren't those pretty? Okay, but for today, we are going to focus on just black against white paper because I think it shows the contrast the best. All right, so the next thing in my marker method is you're going to take a Post-it note and you're going to put it underneath where your blade stopped and just put it on there so it sticks and doesn't move around. Okay? Now, this is the thing that can get you in the most trouble and can mess up the whole thing. So what I want you to do is I want you to promise me that you're going to practice this a few times if you haven't done it before, because trust me, it feels a little awkward and a little weird at first, but once you do it a few times, you'll get it. So the first thing you're going to do is reach in here very gently, and the whole key to this is be gentle, and unscrew the screw that's holding the carriage arms together. All right? Unscrew it just enough. Don't take it out. Just enough. Swing it over to the side, and then swing that open enough to get it out, okay? And then just pull it straight out to you. The whole thing you don't want to do is you don't want to move this big, fat, gray thing over here, okay? And if you're wondering, and if you're noticing a little theme, yes, I've drawn on my blade housing also with a Sharpie. And the reason I do that is because there's many times when I've been in a hurry and tried to do this that I tried to put it back into the carriage arms with this little recessed opening. It looks like it could work, right? It's recessed, but that's not where it goes. It goes in the top recessed opening, and so what I've done is I just drew a whole bunch of ugly little Sharpie lines to tell myself that, yes, Glenda, this is where the carriage arms belong. All right? Okay, you're now done with part 2 of the 3-part tutorial. So continue on to part 3 so that you get all the rest of the hints and how-tos as well as the ins and outs of how to utilize my Glenda marker method. All right, see you in part 3.